Have you ever witnessed someone say if you don't like it leave and everyone left? Something like this happened to me in my previous HOA, circa 15 years ago now. We were at a board meeting in the HOA president's unit. And he was power tripping and trying to illegally abuse a particular owner he didn't like personally. When the rest of the board wouldn't go along with what he wanted, he basically said fine. I quit. Get out. We did. And reconvened at my unit, where we quickly decided to do the appropriate thing. Older people can be quite the dicks. In my experience. My mother is well known for her Christmas/Easter/whatever tantrums. She threw a particularly good one when I was about 14. And yelled the infamous line. My uncle and aunt piled themselves, their daughter, and myself and about 5 of my siblings into their 4WD, and we all left to go to their place, picking up KFC for lunch on the way. Don't know what kind of Christmas my mother had, but ours was pretty good in the end. So glad we didn't get pulled over. Yes. Or pretty close to it at least. I was a founding member, and treasurer, of a skydiving society at my university in Aberystwyth. I myself am teetotal. But I still went out on the weekly social nights which, in Aberystwyth, were just spent in the local bars and pubs as there is nothing else to do there at night. I am pleased to say that my owning a car, so giving people lifts to the drop zone, plus my being teetotal, designated driver/nanny on nights out, plus my house being close to the nearest drop zone, 4 hours away just south of Birmingham, and letting the club sleep there on occasion, had made me rather well liked. We went to one of our usual favorite haunts, Lord Beeching's. Only this time the owner was there behind the bar, with one other staff member who looked rather glum, serving and was in a foul mood. All 25 or so of us went in and ordered drinks. He served 23 of us. Then ID'd my friend, even though he was clearly over 18. A student. With 24 other students. A regular. The other staff member vouched for him, etc. Made him walk back to halls to get his passport before he would serve him. This was already eliciting grumbles from the club. But everyone accepted pubs had to be careful about restrictions and carried on. Then I asked for a glass of water, which he was legally required to provide. I might add. He replied, I'm not muddying my glasses for some prick who isn't paying. I simply raised my eyebrows, as I had never encountered such a response to a request for a glass of water before. After a moment for it to set in that this guy wasn't making a weird joke. He really wasn't going to give me a glass of water. I turned around to the room of 24 other people. I swirled my finger in the air and shouted, skydiving club. Drink up. This asshole won't serve me. So we're leaving. Everybody drank up immediately and we all left. The skydiving club never went there again whilst I was a member. And everyone else I told the story to avoided it as well. When I was still in school, we had this great and fun teacher that really did his best for us. Unfortunately, we had some serious bullshits in our class. Not paying attention and just talking through him. I felt so sorry for him. One day he had enough and, still kinda calmly, tells anyone not interested to just leave. Those shits didn't think twice and just stood up and left. What's more sad is that almost everybody blindly followed those shits. Even people that I never expected that to do. I sat there probably with 2 others. That's the moment I realized I'm never ever going to follow blindly like sheep anymore. I never really done this. But I was often afraid to walk a different path. Even 18+ students, literally paying for their study themselves, can be serious ungrateful shits. I know it's bad, but I secretly hope they end up without certificate and a shitload of debt from that study. Yup. At a potluck, we had a Karen who went on a power trip and made rules that only benefited her. She screamed, if you don't like it, leave. The other mothers, fathers, all picked up their kids, took their dishes from the potluck and left. It was only the Karen and us security guards. We weren't able to leave because we were on the job. However, we didn't share our pizza with her. My lecturer wanted us to have an extra class, online, after the exams because we had missed a lesson during the semester. We asked him if he could at least move it to the afternoon, but he insisted it be at 9 a.m. So everyone logged into classroom, but only 2 people were answering his questions. He then decided to take the register and everyone was present. Then he said, "I'm not forcing anyone to be here. If you don't want to participate in the lesson, go." Everyone logged out immediately except me because I had gone to the bathroom. When I came back, I found him calling for my name. He later logged out and sent me the PPT of the lesson. When I was a kid, I stayed at a friend's house for the weekend. My friend's mother was one of those parents who, at the dinner table, required their kids to eat everything on their plate come hell or high water. I had been served way too much food, and said that I can't eat it all. The mother said to me, "You can either finish your food or leave the table." I promptly left the table. This totally blew the minds of my friend and his siblings. It had never occurred to them that leaving the table was actually a viable option. When my mother picked me up the next day, my friend's mother told her what had happened and said I was the rudest little boy. I think my mother was actually quite proud of me. I think it was 6th grade. We were all playing a game of truth or dare. But one of the really pervy boys started dating the girls to kiss some of the other boys, or lay on them. All the girls told him to knock it off, but he just said, "If you don't like it, leave the game." Everyone, and I mean everyone, we had 14 to 17 people there, got up and left him there. I had an insufferable supervisor once, and we'd have these 15-minute pre-shift meetings. Dude would just stand in there and lord over everybody for the duration and talk about how bad we were doing. The phrase "we suck" was one of his favorites. Finally one day, he's really on one and summons the testicular fortitude to say, "If you don't like it, there's the door." His second in command got up, said "F this," and walked out. He stood there, stunned for about 5 seconds, and then ran out the door after him. He later ended up having some mental instability and quitting. The second in command is now the supervisor. I survived all of these meetings by default, assuming he wasn't talking to me. I loved with my abusive mother and siblings. I won't go through all the details of what happened, but sometimes she would get so angry she'd threaten to have me removed, or she would even tell me I can leave. After months of saving money, I mustered up the strength to move about halfway across the country, and I've never been better. Worked at Thai restaurant. Owner's daughter, who was manager, left town for a couple weeks, and we realized once she left that she was stealing our tips/tipping us out way less than herself for over a year if working there with her. When she got back, we confronted her at the end of the night during her shift, since she refused to meet with us in an official group meeting. The 4 of us, servers, called her out, and she said, "If you don't like it, then get out or sue me." We were all 18 to 20 years old and didn't really know what to do, so 3 of us quit on the spot in that moment and walked out the door. I'll never forget the look on her face. A former industrial job I used to have said that during an all-hands meeting, we were understaffed, underpaid, and overworked. And everyone knew it. Instead of the 2/1 ratio of 2 machines to 1 operator for safety reasons, we'd have 4, 6, 8. Because people were getting paid less than most retail jobs to bust their asses in some of the most disgusting work I've ever done. You'd come home covered in moldy coolant, metal shavings, and stink. Machines started breaking down, because they'd never shut them down to perform maintenance on them. So we'd often have massive problems, which, of course, meant even more overtime to make up for the broken machines. And people started quitting. Management's response was to tell us that they expected us to work harder, because they couldn't get more help in. One of my co-workers, who generally gave no fucks, asked, in front of everyone in that room, why they didn't try raising the poor wages, and see if they could entice people that way. The response was, "We're not having that conversation right now. If you don't like it, you can quit." Who, buddy? Was that the wrong thing to say? As soon as word got out to the other shifts, what can only be called a fucking exodus began. We lost half of each shift within the week. I stuck around for a few more weeks, until I had a conflict with my schooling at the time. Since one of my classes got out about 30 minutes before my shift, 30 minutes away. So I warned them in advance that I might be a few minutes late one day a week. Maybe. And got told that I needed to decide what was more important, my school or my job. So I quit, and giggled my ass off at the sign in the HR office that said we had an almost 80% turnover rate. Never did find out what happened to that hellhole. But I can't imagine anything good with losing that many people. The poor HR rep seemed like she was just so fucking done with everything. And seemed so very apologetic as she took my batch. My husband worked at a really toxic job for a while. As staff got fired or quit, they weren't replaced, to cut costs, and instead the remaining 2 employees were worked to death. Finally, the owner, who was a shitty boss and terrible businessman, called a meeting with the 2 to try to force an attitude adjustment. The employees tried to be constructive and talk about things they saw that needed to be improved upon to make things work better. And of course this egotistical asshole owner wouldn't have it. He told them if they couldn't handle the expectations that they were free to leave. So they did. Both of them left immediately and never set foot in the store again. I don't think the owner was expecting that at all. He expected them to grovel and beg to keep their jobs and thank him for the opportunity to work 70-hour weeks under his tyrannical rule. My husband called me after that meeting and was so upset he couldn't hardly tell me what happened. He was terrified. He was so sure I would be angry at him for quitting his job when we really weren't in a position that I could support us. I wasn't mad at all. I was so proud of him for not taking the shit that was being doled out to him and doing what is best for his mental health. He's a damn good man and deserved better. Thanks for watching.